Now we're going to discuss probably the most expected stage, apart from we have missed procurement, but procurement will be for tomorrow, and we get to the most desired stage when we discuss the project for the, I mean, the desired stage for the whole team, for the town or city. It is already something that is visible, that is present physically. We talk about real transformations of your facilities within the framework of the project, and definitely about a year will be spent on energy audit, development of the technical design, as well as some other things will not be visible. People will know about the project, but will not see anything done about it. But still, we have to stress that this year is very important because without good energy audit, without well-prepared technical design and bill of quantities, the final stage, the one we are talking about now, is impossible. So the more you invest at preparatory stage, the higher quality your energy audit and your project is, the more success you'll get at the final stage of the project. So we talk about the final four stages. We talk about construction stages and technical supervision. Technical supervision stands separately because probably it is the key point for the whole construction period because the quality of technical supervision is directly related to the quality of all the works and things done. Then we talk about acceptance of works, exploitation and maintenance, and verification of the project. So construction works, depending on the type of the project, can take from 3 to 9 months. Uh, we talk about the different duration of construction, and definitely if you start your project somewhere in November, in winter, hardly construction works are hardly possible. Therefore, your final stages will be prolonged for 3 months. So it's better to have everything done in due time and test probably your facility, your building in winter when energy efficiency indicators will be most visible. What is construction or construction works? We talk about capital or current repairs of the building, restoration and renovation, and we talk about all the activities which are about construction works. Uh, Technical supervision is an inseparable part of the construction works, and from our point of view, technical supervision is a number of different measures like control over quality, volumes, cost, and documents of the object. And the aim of the events is to make all the works from the beginning of the project till the end of the project manageable, transparent, predicted, and understandable for the client. And when we talk about technical supervision, we talk about a company or a person or a number of persons who will be ears and eyes of the client directly at the construction field, and who will be able to demand the quality results which will be satisfactory for you and for the European Union as the donor of the project. I'm not sure whether you know about these nuances, but sometimes people confuse the construction design supervision and it is meant, what is meant by is how the person who was responsible for technical design can control whether all these things are complied with during the construction. In the European legislation, in the European practice, the approaches to technical supervision is slightly different from ours because with them technical supervision is when the company or a person who is responsible for three key points: the budget of the project, the quality of the works, and the schedule uh, of the works. The schedule probably should be the focus of our attention, because very often this indicator is not taken into account here. We try to control more the quality and the budget, while the schedule of works is not always supervised. So from the European point of view, technical supervision should trace whether the project is done within the budget, whether there is enough funding for all the measures. So technical supervision is also responsible for the quality of the works done, and technical supervision also is trying to meet the schedule. So this is the triangle, and the center of the triangle is technical supervision, and the philosophy behind the technical supervision in the European Union. The whole process of construction works is staged into three points, and actually we have 4 points related to technical supervision. Here we do not talk about selection of construction company, but here we talk about technical selection or choice of technical supervision uh, and coordination of all the activities at the construction site from the viewpoint of project manager. The first thing you should start with when we talk about construction works is creation of the management system over all construction works at the construction site. You see that the elements of this network are the project, which is in the center. Then there is you as the customer or the project manager, the constructing company with which you have signed the contract. So you pay this company for the construction works done. You have technical or construction design supervision, who are responsible for all issues related to construction, while your task is to organize this link for the technical supervision to be part of your team and to cooperate with you, and not to come to the construction site once a month or once a year or once a month, even not in the construction site, but somewhere in the restaurant to sign the handover and acceptance certificate. It means there is no good control over the quality of construction works. So your primary task is to organize the work in such a way for the technical or construction design supervision to fulfill its obligations according to the contract and according to the current legislation. And also, you see us present here as the support team, and on our side will provide additional quality control. Our national experts will monitor the construction site, will go with monitoring visits, and as a result, they will prepare reports with recommendations. They will mention all the drawbacks, all the minuses they have found at the construction site, and it will be recommended to you to correct these drawbacks. And again, there will be a follow-up control whether these remarks and drawbacks were corrected. The next point is development of terms of reference for technical supervision, and in this case we recommend the competition basis. Again, we do not talk about the very procedure, the tender or the negotiation procedure. It's up to you actually. So you know your own thresholds according to the national or European Union. It is important that this person or the company to be selected on the competition basis.
Normally, technical site supervision is carried out by a licensed engineer with the necessary license or certificate, because the situation that the requirements are different in each country. But in any case, this is a licensed or a certified engineer having the experience of working in the respective area. And again, I'm saying that if the company or a person has experience of working with technical supervision of buildings, it doesn't mean that he is a good expert in district heating systems, for example, and vice versa. He must also have general knowledge in the area of architecture and construction, must be sociable, and have experience of working with international projects. These are those additional characteristics which make him more competitive as compared to his peers and other companies in the market. We have developed a template of the concept of technical supervision, site supervision, which clearly defines the roles and the functions of each of the parties. It contains recommendations on our behalf as to what project managers should do, because in fact, in standard projects, ordinary projects, there is no function of project manager at all. There is only the function of customer. In this case, we do have project managers, we have project teams, and it's important to integrate this whole process. So this concept, this template predetermines all the functions. Besides that, specifically for the first phase, projects, we organized a technical training on technical on-site supervision, sorry for tautology. It was in Yerevan, and all the materials from this event are on the site. There are all the presentations, all the materials there. So if you want to, you can get acquainted with these materials on our site. I think they will be of use for you. Also, a couple of requirements on our behalf, which will show you how we will be assessing their the terms of reference. So our recommendation is that technical supervision should be independent and selected on the basis of the competition. And if the national legislation restricts a certain scope of means that could be paid for, that could be allocated for technical supervision, you have a lot of in construction supervision. You have a chance to just register as some kind of consultancy services and hire the company which has the technical experience of work, and which would do additional monitoring of the quality. And you may prescribe in the contract what this additional supervision should include. Also, both into the contracts with construction companies and the technical supervision, site supervision company contracts, we should include starting meetings at which we have all the main stakeholders involved to be involved in the implementation of the works, and also we must have weekly meetings. So every week, construction supervision and technical supervision should be discussed, because the representative of the customer and the representative of the performer should talk over what has been done in the last week, what is planned to be done for next week, and they should also discuss the problem faced in the process of implementation and pass decisions related to modification or amendment making in the process. And they should pass technical decisions on technical solutions that can be used at the construction site. Regular reporting is also among our requirements, both for technical supervision and for construction companies. Maybe I'm sharing your skepticism a bit, because how is construction company going to provide a report every week? We haven't been ever, and how technical supervision is going to do this. We haven't been doing this. In about 2 or 3 months, everybody, comes to like this, and everybody realizes that this is a very good tool of controlling the whole process and planning your activity for next week, because these reports in these reports, the construction company determines the scope of works to be done during the next week, while technical supervision also plans its work when the specialists want to visit the site, and when there is the supply of materials, and the technical supervision can check the corresponding documents and their correspondence to design and solutions, and that makes life of everybody much simpler and helps to plan all the activities. These are the requirements of national legislations that any drastic changes in the design need to be approved by the technical and construction supervision as well as by us as a support team, because we look through, we provide recommendations, and at the we also do it at the stage of document verification, and we really think that these decisions will be implemented in practice. That's why any changes, I mean significant, substantial changes in design solutions should be also approved by the support team. After we look through the terms of reference, it's necessary to conduct a competition for choosing technical site supervision, and even our guidance has a terrible phrase that objectively, if the support team sees that technical supervision does not fully perform its functions, and we have had a case like this already, we will address the delegation, asking the delegation as the contracting authority to influence the grant receiver, and in this way replace the company or the person which performs the services on technical supervision in a poor quality way. This was an extraordinary decision, not a frequent one, and I think that if you select the technical supervision expert quite well, so everything will be all right and the work will be performed. And he will perform all the functions he should under the contract and under the applicable legislation. Also, while choosing technical supervision expert, you should provide all the documents. These are not something should be done by default. I mean, technical tender documents should be provided to him, but also the documents developed by the support team. And technical supervision expert should be given a copy of the audit for him to realize all the technical solutions and for him to understand how the technical decisions were passed back at the stage of energy audit, and also a copy of tender documents, of contract, of design, for him to follow everything. And for him to follow all the requirements which are included into this document. Within this process of importance is the fact that, in spite of the fact that this process also involves a lot of people, a lot of stakeholders, these are the citizens of the town, the project team, the designers, the design supervision, technical supervision, but still the most responsible person, the core, the principal responsible person is project manager. That's why, in case any problems, any deficiencies are traced, you are going to be the first contact person to be contacted by the delegation, and the requirements, the claims will be made to you in case the quality does not correspond to their expectations or to the applicable norms. That's why it is of greatest importance for you to organize the process in an adequate way, and thus prevent any of these problems which you can possibly be faced with in the future at the stage of project implementation and construction works. Um, here is here are the stages of construction works, and you can see involvement of different stakeholders. At the stage of contracting, this is project manager and project and customer and the construction company. At the starting meeting, all of the 5 stakeholders are involved, including us as a support team. At the stage of construction works, they must be involved on a mandatory basis. Design supervision, technical supervision, and the construction company. Well, you as a project manager cannot live at the construction site, and that would be senseless, pointless. That's why your task is to organize the work for you to always have objective and timely information in real-time mode as to what is happening at the construction site, which means that at least once a week you have to participate in the working meeting at the site, and on the basis of the results of this meeting, a protocol is arranged, and in it the problems are recorded which you discussed, the solutions suggested, and the decision made are recorded, and after that, at the next meeting, you monitor the progress in terms of performance of some of those decisions and generally the progress of solving problems. As far as these are working meetings already, and as far as reporting is concerned, so project managers prepares the report on the basis of weekly reports delivered by technical supervision expert and construction company. We have a number of templates and reporting documents which need to be delivered to technical supervision expert. The first one is checklist for technical supervision, because it points out what he should do directly before he starts performing his duties. Also, there is a protocol of a weekly meeting. This is a kind of a template of report to be provided by technical supervision expert, and 2 more weekly reports. Here is step 5. This is something which should be performed by a technical supervision expert, and in fact, this is the company. This is either the person, either the company or the person on whom everything depends. And here are a number of standard things which are done within their work, and but you know that we are the EU-funded demonstration project, and even technical supervision should be ready for additional requirements set by you as project managers, and you. I'm going to repeat it once again. You are responsible for the final quality. I won't talk about the description of those weekly meetings of all the stakeholders which are involved and which were mentioned in the previous table, like the supervision experts or companies and construction works company. But here you have a template of the agenda for this meeting related to the works done and the works to be done. So we have to discuss the results of the previous meeting, to do the monitoring, to do what works have been performed and which ones will be changed, what problems, what lagging behind, what delays you have, what changes in the technical details you have. Then you should plan the next meeting and the work for the next week. So this is the algorithm for those meetings. Besides that, I've already shared the information about additional monitoring missions we perform. Our experts will have regular visits to your sites, and they will prepare reports about the quality of works and give recommendations to you, to project managers and project teams. And I hope that You, as project managers, will tell the construction companies about those deficiencies, and will then reasonable periods these construction companies will correct everything according to the recommendations. If everything is done well, sooner or later, within 3 or within 9 months, you will come to the process of final acceptance, the handover, which is the process of information of everything that has been done and that corresponds to design solutions and current legislation. And during the final acceptance, you study the site which was involved into the project. On the basis of this evaluation, you record in the protocol the deficiencies which have been traced and things which have been underdone by the construction companies. Also in the protocol, you record the period which you allocate for the those deficiencies, and then on a repeated basis you accept this site as a ready one and you put it into operation, into commission. You have to pay attention both to purely construction deficiencies, but also during this final evaluation you have to pay attention to the availability of all the certificates for latent works, availability of all the necessary documents for equipment and materials that were installed in your site. Besides that, you have to check the marking of all the equipment, and this needs to be done for the purposes of organizing its operation. Then you should check all the warranty commitments, warranty obligations of the constructor, of the producer, and you have to follow performance of those guarantee commitments, guarantee obligations in case some equipment is put out of operational works in a failure regime. Besides that, in the contract of the construction company, there must be a recommendation of the 16-hour, which means 2 working days, period for the construction company to train the academy or the municipal building, any building, how to operate their facility which has been refurbished or which has been subject to energy refurbishment. And on the basis of the final acceptance, you already make a decision about the final payment and about the final guarantees which need to be provided to you by the contractor for you to feel safe and secure against the appearance of any problems with the site over the guarantee period. You must be sure that the construction company will remove all those deficiencies over that period and will correct its mistakes. A separate point is the process of maintenance. It's not enough to do refurbishment, to reconstruct, let's say, the boiler house. The most important thing is to achieve many years of operation, successful operation of this boiler house for it to bring benefits to the community. And with this in view, it's necessary to arrange the system of maintenance and operation. And there are 3 basic elements of this system. These are guidelines. Either the contractor develops those operation guidelines for certain type of equipment, or you do it within the project for your staff. For example, how to operate the insulated building. Also, you need well-trained staff, and you need to organize the necessary trainings for the staff. And the third component you shouldn't forget about is finance.
It is stupid to think that when you have done one capital investment, you do not need to spend money on maintenance of this facility, of this object. Any object, whatever it is, be it building or anything else. A building needs being examined, ventilation needs replacement of filters, the boiler house needs regular service maintenance of the boilers, and definitely to have just guidelines and trained staff is not enough. Without funds, without money for tools and materials, for contracts regarding service maintenance. You won't be able to properly use your object or your equipment. So please do not forget this element. It is important. There should be investment after the project is implemented. You should still invest into maintenance of the facility, but believe me, your investments will be returned on the basis of the savings you've made during the project. Uh, Changes in terms of measurements and verification. Here, the schedule is a good example. Blue line is energy consumption at your facility, at your object, at your site. In this particular point, we have finished an energy refurbishment of our building or of our facility. In terms of measurements and verification, we prepare a prognosis slide. In case nothing has been done, the energy consumption will be like that. And we have done our project, and the energy consumption now is the blue line. So everything covered in green is our energy savings. Larissa was right. The most important thing is to properly calculate this baseline, this red line, because the energy auditor should take into account quality changes made at your facility. For instance, when we talk about comparison of two buildings, before and after modernization, when temperature inside was 14 and after modernization, the refurbishment it was 22, it is wrong. You have to compare tomatoes to tomatoes and not tomatoes to cucumbers. So this red line should be projected, and you should calculate your savings on the basis of this baseline. And we also have to compare actual consumption before and after. So we have to understand actual outcomes of your project. Even if you started paying more money um, after the project, you still can substantiate it with the quality of services provided in the building, etc. By the way, this is the schedule I have borrowed from Slavodich. These are their plans for measurements and verification for school. This is average baseline for heating for school, and this is the actual comparison, the actual energy consumption. Blue line is before the project, and yellow is after the project. So according to the measurement and verification plan of Slavodich, they managed to reduce energy consumption actually 3 times. So they managed to reduce energy consumption by almost 64% as compared to the baseline. Lessons learned from the first phase of COMDEP. So, first of all, requirements to quality control should be included into the contract with the construction company. Also, you should include into this contract the authorities of the project manager and support team. Also, you should oblige the constructing company to submit the reports, weekly reports on the works done, because if it is not included into the contract, it's really very difficult to press them submit such reports. You know, the constructors and how they work. Also, our recommendation is to organize a starting meeting to invite all the stakeholders. First of all, it's a good opportunity to get acquainted. I mean, the technical supervision, the construction design supervision, the person responsible for the very construction works, for them to discuss the details of the project. Because, for instance, let's say the constructing company for instance, needs some additional explanation on this or that element of the system. So it's really a good opportunity to discuss all the problematic issues in order to prevent problems at the implementation stage. Um, I have already talked about it, that independent technical supervision should be selected on competitive basis, regular reporting and site visits, engagement of the municipality is very important. When we talk about quality control and general monitoring of construction works, so you really have to engage representatives of your municipality, because finally they are the final beneficiaries of the project and they have to maintain this project for a lot of years. So it's really important to engage them directly at this stage. Uh, to ensure their motivation, their interest, to train them, to teach them how to properly maintain and use this building or this facility in the future. For sure, you have to demand real time schedule from the construction company. Very often, what they indicate in tender documents is too optimistic and too ambitious, or vice versa. They provide too general schedules which are too general, and therefore you have to provide detailed schedule of all construction works. And later you have to check how they follow this schedule. And the final point, you, as the person who is responsible for quality of the project and general coordination of the project, probably it's good that any visit is agreed with the project manager or any visit of any person or of any company. Because it can be the case that, for instance, TV crew comes to the construction site, something provides wrong information, they misunderstand it, and as a result, they will state that the project funded by the EU is wrong and something should be done in a different way. So any visits of any persons or companies to the construction site should be agreed with you as the project manager, as well as the client who is responsible for this uh, facility for this building. And here I have uh, made a list of general remarks made by our experts during site visits. For instance, these are projects related to street lighting, refurbishment, etc. For instance, here we deal with wrong attachment of mineral insulator to the wall. Very often this cable profile is forgotten. That will prevent blocking here. Here the window is installed without hydro-insulation tape. Here we do not have supporting profile, or probably the window sill, or later it will be put on the mineral insulator. And for instance, here it is cut in the wrong way, and there are lots of chances that it will be damaged. Here we see that communications are not insulated, and there is a crack or like an opening here through which the heat flow, outflow may happen. In the projects which presuppose reconstruction of internal heat supply systems, all the pipes should be either pre-insulated or preliminary insulated with preliminary insulation. Here there is an example of bad reconstruction of internal heating system. Here we see that the binding were done in the wrong way, There are no special circuits, and uh, even the pipe may even crack, and all these works will be good for nothing later. Anti-fire equipment that is used for pipes. For instance, here they are too short and they do not cover. Um, they are they they are too short and they are inside the wall. So in case there is fire, there are chances that the fire will easily penetrate from one flat from one room into the other. Here we see wrong installation of hydroinsulation tape on the roof of the building. Here we see that the ends are attached in the wrong way, and in case uh, water will penetrate here, it will become damp and it will be very difficult to dry it. Also, you should plan certain measures, or protecting measures from rainwater. For instance, if you leave the trench like that, which is not protected from rainfall, all the water will go under the building, and again, it can damage the ground floor, the mold may happen, etc. Here you see an example of a bad storing of the materials. It is just open to elements, to the rainfall, etc. And in case of the rainfall, it will become damp and you won't be able to use it later. Here you see an example of bad preparation for reveal site. We see that part of the insulator is not hermetized. Later it will be covered, so visually it will not be seen. But later, what if water goes here, you won't be able to understand why the wall under the window is cold and why the mold appears. Here we see the following picture. So they will continue, for instance, uh, these cosmetic works, but here there should be at least 15 centimeters of the tape and of the film and of the other covering layers in order to ensure the unified picture. Here we have a number of mistakes, a big hole between the insulator and the wall, there is no starting profile, etc. Here we see an example of bad equipment for windows in case there is strong wind. Still, there are some chances that your window will probably not be fixed properly because it is not fixed by a plate, metallic plate, but by some metal wires which cannot hold this window in the proper way. Here we see insufficient construction nails used by the constructors. For instance, here we see that everything is fine, and in the round circle, the red circle, we do not have the nails at all. Here we see an example of window replacement where the width of the frame will not be enough for good insulation, and this means influence of frost, mold, and the other negative consequences. By the way, these are all real examples from real projects which are implemented during the first stage of the project. Here you see an example how the heating pipes are outside of the building and they are not covered with some layers but with the gypsum plasterboard parts, which is very bad for the building. Here you see an example when boiler house is part of the building It is the external wall is not insulated. Here we see irregular assembling of the internal heating system. So aesthetically it is very bad. Here we see an example of bad measurements of the window, and we see that the hole is too big, it is beyond all the norms. Here is the good example of the test of a heating system. We see the test with 50-minute difference, and it is a drop in one section. It means about 100 liters of loss of water just for 1 hour. You can understand what kind of losses they are going to endure during 1 year. An example with street lighting. Here you see the poles which are not vertical but under some angle. It means you cannot properly install the very lamp, and we see that the previous lamps are fine, but this one is lights not the very street, not the surface of the street, but the light goes up. Here, for instance, we see wrong assembling or wrong choice of the angle, uh, and it means that the bright spot is not in the middle of the road, but exactly under the lamp post, while the part of the road is not lighted at all, lit at all. So in case the car goes here, the driver won't be able to see the passenger or any other object appearing from the darkness. A couple of lessons learned regarding the maintenance or exploitation of the building. For instance, using pellets from agricultural waste. For instance, probably it is straw or something like that, or probably it is sunflower waste. It cannot be used because the boiler was supposed to use only the wood. In case they use such pellets, the boiler will be damaged probably in a year or two. Here we see example of bad storage of the fuel. You see that first of all it is stored just on the ground, and when it is collected together with the ground, with the stones. So we talk about wood cuttings, or wood shreds. You see again that it is stored in the open air, under open sky. So again, under the influence of rain, it will be not in good condition. This is a good example of the case when boiler is used not according to the regime. There is a special temperature map, and when the temperature is 3.2, I mean the external temperature, the supply should be 52, 55, but the boiler house provides only 38 degrees. It means they want to save, or the quality of the fuel does not allow the boilers to work according to the plan, according to the planned regime. So as a result, we see that it doesn't work according to its passport. It's everything from me. Please, the mic. I would like to talk about the last slide, this one. Here you do not see, probably do not cannot see properly, but the fuel was damp wood shredding, and all the attempts to have good regime were good for nothing because the fuel was bad. So they all the time ordered the pellets. They wanted them to be dry. They were trying to mix the wood shredding and the pellets, but the maximum was up to about 40 degrees. But here only the boilers were replaced, while the infrastructure was done even before us. Unfortunately, there were mistakes. And coming back to the planning stage, particularly planning of the boiler houses, we recommend to do everything in a complex because fuel supply, fuel storage will directly influence the maintenance, the exploitation of the boiler. So in case you put damp wood shredding all the time, um, sometime later there will be serious problems with the boiler, and you understand the consequences. So what you have shown, I mean the drawbacks, the examples, the mineral wool, all the other things, what were the other steps? Did you cancel the funding? It was corrected, or just nothing was done? Probably I will just tell you about the defect or faults correction procedure. For instance, if our expert goes to the site, to the object, and finds some defects, he prepares a report sent to the project manager. Project manager has some time to correct the faults or defects, and in case the contract, for instance, writes the guarantee letter that defect 1 will be corrected during 2 weeks, defect 3 will need probably 1 month, then during the next visit, the expert checks whether defect 1 has been corrected, and so on and so forth. And again, records everything in a written form. Definitely, we, as a support team, have a right to prepare an official letter to the delegation for the delegation to freeze the project until all the defects, all the drawbacks are corrected. Talking about these defects, it happens to our construction companies very often, unfortunately. So if we see a drawback or a defect, we record it in the protocol and we write that such and such company during construction works So we talk about the working group. Later, I will talk about the working group I'm talking about. It is part of the technical supervision over the construction. So we prepare the protocol where we describe all the defects. At the meeting, there is the contracting company that promises to remove these defects for a certain period of time. Then this period of time passes, and together with technical supervision, we come later and check whether they have been removed. If it is removed, we accept it. If it is not removed, we either prolong the period for correcting it, or we do not pay for this work, because European Commission accepts only high-quality works that meet European project documentation. If, for instance, we have found the reveals with cracks or holes in them, we consider them to be not done. No, Mike? The interpreters do not hear the question. So we probably hire another company, and another contracting company will remove the defects. The question is different. We do not pay for all the works. No, we do not pay only for this or that particular work. So if the technical supervision, for instance, states that this volume of works have not been done, we just cross them out from the list and we do not pay for them. Or the contractor has to correct the drawbacks. According to our agreement, the customer has a right, in case the defects have not been corrected, to hire another company or to do it independently. We include it. It's well, the tender is not necessary because it is not special works. If you write in your contract that in case the contractor has not corrected the defect during 20 days, the customer has a right to do it himself or herself, or to hire another company to correct this defect. Definitely, it's clear that there are more complicated works, there are easier works, there are cheaper or more expensive work. For instance, we have a contractor. He has done everything in a very good way, but he doesn't work in the corners. And for instance, the 10% of 10% of works have not been done. It doesn't mean that we have to look for another one. Well, we do not pay everything to the contractor. We pay in parts. And the contractor cannot do one part and not to do the other part. But for instance, we have a contractor that systematically does not correct the deficit, the defects. I'm not going to pay anything. But you can reduce the amount of the contract for the works that have not been done. We are talking about different things. For instance, we have two contractors. You cannot have two contractors for the same works. But here we talk about emergency conditions or force majeure conditions. It means your contractor does not follow the contract obligations. So as a client, as the customer, you have the right, if it is a force majeure case, to hire an external company, another company that will correct the defects made by the first company. So we are not talking about tender. But here there can be a situation which was meant probably by Roman. For instance, the contractor does not correct some defects, some drawbacks. As a result, it is, for instance, 10% of all the amount of works. The contractor says, okay, pay me 10% less, I'm not going to correct it. So if we try to hire another different company to do this particular type of work, so this external company will have to do very small amount of work. Definitely, their prices will be probably higher. And as a result, the general cost of all the works, taking into account that the second company would like to have more than 10%. They will state, for instance, that we are going to take 15% for these works. It means we already have 5% accession only for this particular amount of work. If we, for instance, talk about assembling or installation of the window, so if we, for instance, take it as a whole, or we can talk about separate parts, like installation of window sills, then we can state that we do not pay for the whole window installation. How it works?
Maybe let me give my opinion here. First of all, you have a contract and you have payments in there. like the final payments, say the last 20, should always be like 20 or 25% that you pay after the works have been completed. So you have leverage. You can just say, guys, you do not do it the way I want. I'm not going to give you the last 25%. You want to go to court? Please go to court. It will take 2 or 3 years. Gooit je steten? Jullie niet. Het proste. Tak. That's the first thing. The second thing, you should not wait until the very end. If you see something that is not right, immediately discuss it with the construction company. Tell them, okay, within 1 or 2 weeks, better 1 week, no more is not needed. You correct this. If not, we stop the works. You have maybe, or we just postpone until you have done it, and until that time you cannot do any other work. We can break the contract with you. You have some power, and in general, when you do the procurement, you have certain criteria what kind of firms can bid, like so many years experience, so many annual sales and everything. So normally you get serious construction companies. They don't want to get into scandals. They don't want to get in a situation where they have put in money that they cannot take back because you don't pay them. So in general, if you put the right pressure, they will do the right thing. They will make the corrections. But it's also important, the moment you see something, you should tell them immediately. You should not wait until the final acceptance, because then they have to replace all the windows, and not only the first 5, for example. So then, if they have to replace all the windows, they say, sorry guys, no profit for us, we cannot do that. So that's why it's very important that every week the site supervisor checks what is going on. The moment something is discovered, you give a very short period for the construction company to review, to improve. If not, okay, you just stop the work. You tell them, guys, we can stop the contract. We don't like this. That's one way. I think it's also very important. We have had a number of occasions. For example, you saw the heating here with all these things that went like this instead of like this. This is a task of the site supervisor, the technical supervisor. He did not do this control properly. That's one thing. But secondly, where were the people who own the building? Where was the project manager? Also didn't. It was visible for anybody that this is not acceptable work. And even if you are an NGO and you are based hundreds of kilometers away from the project, it doesn't mean that once per week at least, somebody of the municipality should also be looking into it. If you cannot come every week yourself as project team because you are located far away, then you should make sure that every week there is somebody of the municipality at least. And at least you can see the visible defects. Some things they are even clear for me to see. So, and the moment you see something, you should immediately ring the bell. It's very important. In the end, I think this, what you mentioned, very rarely happens. Maybe in Moldova, I don't know. But in Ukraine, we have not seen it that. In Slavotic, we had a problem, for example, with the period of the works, because they sent all the workers, they sent to Poland, because they can make more profit in Poland. So there was nobody working in the site in Slavotic. So in the end, what happened? The mayor sent a letter directly to the director of the company, saying, "Okay, we give you so much time to deal with the issue. If you don't do it, then we are going to to terminate the contract, and we are going to make a legal case against you." And immediately, 40, 50 people came in and they did the work. So you have some leverage, but don't wait until the very end.